Hi, first grade. Thank you for joining me for science today. We are going to be continuing talking about lungs, which we have been talking about for a couple days now. And this is the packet. We're going to be on this page today to start. And this is page 179. So we started talking about lungs and how we have air. We breathe in is inhaling. Breathing out is exhaling. We talked about how God put us together perfectly and how there's mucus and little tiny hairs in our nose and in our windpipe to help filter so that what happens? Particles of dust, pollen, little things in the air don't accumulate in our lungs. If that happens, that makes our lungs unhealthy. So there's a lot of different things in our world that actually have air filters. I wanted to show you a large air filter today. Let me get it. So at your house, you probably have these. You may not know it, but this is an air filter that is used for your heater and if you have air conditioning. And the reason we have air filters, it goes up by the vent area. And usually there's like a grill over it, so you don't really end up seeing this. But what this does is when the air flows through it and is then distributed, the air flows into the other parts of our house, this catches all the dirt and dust that you can't even see that is in the air. And when my husband changes these and gets them down, he'll bring and show me, and guess what? This portion is not even white anymore. It is like gray brown with dust and dirt, and they're just little tiny things. So this helps keep us healthy. You know, vacuum cleaners, a lot of things like that have filters. Even, did you know in your car there's an air filter under the hood of your car? So there's a lot of ways that in our world we have different types of filters. And those are all used to keep us healthy and well. So let's go ahead and look at this page. This is talking about how to keep our own lungs healthy. Now, like I said, we have the tiny hairs and we have mucus. There's things that we can do, but that God has put into our body to keep us healthy. But there's things we can do too. So let's go ahead and we're going to look at this page together. And this says, help keep your lungs healthy. Germs are so small that you cannot see them. That's what I was just talking about. Yeah, you would have to look under a microscope and have them on like a glass or a slide to be able to see them, and it gets magnified. Sometimes we in science have used those little hand glasses. Remember, and we've looked at like salt. Do you remember that time we looked at the salt particles and we were able to see that they actually even had a little shape, which we didn't really realize before. Well, germs can be seen, but not with just your plain eyesight. So germs are so small you cannot see them, but they are in the air that we breathe. And if you breathe in germs, you can end up getting sick. So we need to make healthy choices. You need to cover your mouth. Good to use your arm. We've talked to you about that at school. And your nose with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. And this helps keep the germs from spreading. After you have used a tissue or you've coughed into your hands it's good to use the hand sanitizer, which we always have for you to use. So here are some germs and what they look like. Now, this is not the size of an actual germ. This has been magnified or made much larger because this would be a particle we wouldn't actually be able to see. But this just gives you an idea of if you were looking into a microscope and had germs on the screen, that's something you would possibly be able to see like that. Okay? Now, another important thing about being healthy, do you think it's a good choice to share water bottles with your friends? No, we wouldn't do that. How about sharing food? No, we talk about that because we never know who might have even a food allergy. So we're very careful, aren't we, about making choices and about what we choose to share. We keep our own things for us. Okay, so let's talk about breathing. Right here we have a little boy and he's washing his hands with his mom. And it's talking about when you have a cold. Now, when you have a cold, sometimes your nose gets really stuffy and it gets kind of hard to breathe, doesn't it? Yeah. So you have to blow your nose. Sometimes you might have a medication that your mom or dad would be giving to you. Maybe it's something you have at home. Sometimes if your cold gets really bad, you might have to go see a doctor. And they would prescribe or give you something to help you get better. It's so awesome. Do you know what? We can pray. And God can touch and help us get well. But also, guess what? God created humans to have knowledge and abilities, great brains to learn so much. So doctors, nurses, they're all there to help us too to get well. So God can use them to help us as well get over whatever sickness we have. So a cold makes it hard to breathe. If you have a cold, it's really important to wash your hands often. And if you're around someone else with a cold, you need to keep your distance. And also, they will, be very careful as well. So we're going to go down to this portion of the worksheet. And it says, circle the word that answers each question. What is in your nose that helps keep dirt away from your lungs? What helps keep your lungs clean? Is it bones? Do you have tiny hairs? Or do you have blood? Well, the answer for this one would be tiny hairs. Yes, correct. Tiny hairs. Good job. Number 2, what part of your body is protected when you wash your hands? Do you protect your feet? Do you protect your teeth? Or do you protect your lungs? Yeah, you protect your lungs from germs that would go into your mouth and then down into your lungs. By washing your hands, you keep it all cleansed and free of germs. So good job. We're going to go ahead and go on to the next page. This was pretty short. So we're going to move on to this next page, and it's talking about our lungs. So you're going to be wanting to look at page 181. And are you noticing what I'm noticing? We are running out of science pages. Do you know what that means? We're almost done with science for first grade. I can't even believe this is happening right now. Oh my. So right here, we have a picture of 2 lungs. We need to make a good choice to keep our lungs healthy. One of the choices that is bad for our lungs would be a choice that you would be making right now. It would be a choice that you would make as an adult, and that would be smoking is not a healthy choice. Smoking can hurt your mouth, actually. It's not good for your mouth, your teeth, your nose, or your throat. All those things are affected besides your lungs because of that smoke going into your body. So this is an example of what a good and healthy lung looks like. Okay, so you see it's nice and clean and nothing, it looks good. But this is what an unhealthy lung looks like. Do you see all this black? It's kind of gross to look at, I know, but that's just to give us an idea. Okay, so this is what occurs when smoke has entered into our lungs. Now, if someone has smoked for a while and they quit smoking and don't smoke anymore, over time, their lungs can clear significantly, quite a bit, and it can get much, much better once again. So you want to choose to not make an unhealthy habit, okay, and keep your lungs nice and healthy. So keep your body healthy and don't smoke. So here we see a family all out running, and it says, offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. So God gave us these wonderful bodies, and He wants us to take good care of them and to make good, healthy choices. And that helps keep us from getting ill. Okay? Let's go ahead on to the back page right here. Now, there's sometimes things that children or adults have that are little sicknesses of types that make their lungs not function totally correct. So there's things, like I said, doctors, wonderful scientists, pharmacists, their knowledge is help us when we need additional help to get our bodies healthy again. So right here, it's talking about a condition that is called asthma. And asthma is a condition that makes it hard to breathe. Now, it's some of our friends in the class even actually probably do have asthma. There's probably somebody almost in every class at school, and even more than one in some classes. And sometimes it's because of different things that are blooming at different times of the year. Sometimes it's grasses or dried out grass or weeds. There's different trees that sometimes people are allergic to, or plants. Well, a sign of asthma would be if you have a hard time breathing and you wheeze, you kind of, you hear this funny noise, and breathing becomes hard to do, which sounds kind of strange, but it's like you just have these little tiny breaths and it's kind of hard to breathe. Sometimes you also cough a lot. Just because you have a cough doesn't mean you have asthma. But sometimes once they get wheezing, they cough kind of hard. And you have trouble breathing during and after playing. So sometimes some of you have something that is called an inhaler, which helps clear your lungs. We have them in the school office if you have brought one and that's something you need. So sometimes some of you use them before we go out to recess or before you head out with Coach Carlo for PE. And what this does is you put it up to your mouth, you push it down, and there's this little chamber. And what happens, there's a mist of a medicine that goes into your mouth, down your throat, and it then goes down your windpipe into your lungs. So when you push it, you go, you take a deep breath, and then they have you kind of hold your breath for a minute or two, and you exhale once again. And what that medicine does, it helps clear your lungs, because if you're wheezing, you can kind of tell. Look at this boy, the picture up in here. You can kind of see in his throat that that's what he's having to do to breathe. And you can tell because you can see in the neck area of him, you can see the neck bones. And so he's like really struggling to get that breath. And it's just a little short breath. So after you've used an inhaler, if you do have asthma, you can then breathe much freer and easier. So some people with asthma use an inhaler to help them breathe. Okay, so that's awesome. Let's look down at the bottom when we have a word bank here. The two words that we have in our word bank are lungs and to breathe. So let's read the sentences and decide which word is going to go where. Let's look at number 1. Asthma makes it hard to breathe. So let's go ahead and we will write that word into the line, breathe. All right. And then we've used that word, so we will cross it off, although there's only 2 words in this word bank and there's only 2 sentences, so it's pretty easy. And the second one is smoking hurts the lungs. Lungs. So we'll write that word in the line. Very good. So just remember, lots of times the choices we make help keep us healthy. And I know so many of you already know so many of those good habits to keep your bodies healthy and germ-free. And I'm glad I got to share with you today. Have a wonderful day, and it was so good to be with you. Bye, first grade.